And so I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Am I actually selling Elon Musk a car? In our lives, we will see an age of abundance. We're want for nothing, and it's global, and we're able to completely resolve some of the world's biggest challenges. This isn't even, you're not even faking the corruption anymore. It's just blatant corruption that no one is panicking in Tesla. Like, none of the guys who are there are worried about the future of the business.
Today, I'm diving into something truly inspiring, an hour-long conversation with a Tesla insider who was with the company for 7 years here in the UK. Tesla, led by that slightly controversial visionary Elon Musk, has a track record of turning the impossible into reality time and time again. But what's the secret behind it? My guest today is about to reveal the Tesla mindset and share his personal journey inside a company that's shaping a future we can all believe in. A future built on sustainability, abundance, and unshakable optimism. So if you're ready to feel hopeful about what's ahead, let's get into it. All right, cool. So Alex, you spent 7 years working for Tesla here in the UK. What role did you play? And did you have a nice time?
Yes, absolutely loved it. It's funny how you look back on these things and time gives you a different perspective, right? I guess to answer your first question, it was mostly sales related roles. When I started, it was really the start of Tesla here in the UK. The Model S hadn't yet reached our shores, and it was all about getting people to understand who we were, what we did, but also really understanding electric in general, right? Because until we came along, there really wasn't that many options for people. So yeah, sales related. My roles within the business went from what we call product specialists, so talking to everyone in a mall, helping them understand who we are, all the way through to being a manager of a showroom, managing multiple showrooms across the country. And then I moved into the corporate team doing fleet sales.
Yeah, so we're talking sort of 2014 time? I mean, yeah. So how many Tesla locations were there? How many showrooms were there? How many superchargers were around? Are we talking
We are talking one showroom for the UK,
right?
London and Westfield shopping centre. We're talking 0 superchargers, 0 cars apart from 2 American registered test drive cars on trade plates. And that was it. Yeah.
So I've just quickly watched the. You've sent across some photos for me to have a peruse. So I'll stick them up as a B-roll over the video. But you've also sent a video of Elon Musk at the event as well, and he was promising everybody there will be superchargers like everywhere, and you'll have free supercharging for life. For people to get so excited about Tesla back then, when there's no supercharger network, there's no promise of success from the company. It's really quite a leap of faith at that point, isn't it? But goodness me, thank goodness people did, and they put their money down on that Model S.
Yeah, and it was exactly like you say. It was, most of my conversations were about helping people feel just a bit more comfortable about that leap of faith. It was all about building trust, and so we were trying to avoid over promising, but at the same time, all we could do was talk about plans. And as you said in that video, Elon was mentioning how you could drive from basically one end of the country to the other by a certain date. And as we all know from anyone who's followed Tesla, he's known for his promises that don't necessarily hit in the time frame, but we definitely did achieve that goal, but maybe not quite as quick as he first said.
What's the phrase? He achieves the impossible, just merely late. That's all. I think that's going to be the case for everything. Even when the Roadster 2 comes out, it'll be okay. It was coming. Yeah, Elon time is fair enough. But I think a lot of people have to look at the evidence of what he's actually done. And he has created the largest supercharger network in the world, and then opened it up to the entire world of EVs. I mean, how's that for pushing towards a sustainable energy mission?
But also, I think on that exact point, that event, so before the public were there and we were handing over the first Model S's to customers, Elon did a meet and greet with the UK team, which was obviously relatively small back then. So it was all of us in a relatively small room near where the event was happening, and he did a sort of Q&A with everyone. And for me, that was the first time meeting Elon in person. As anyone who joined the business was very aware of him, got emails from him about bigger picture stuff. But what really blew me away was the CEO of a multi-billion dollar company even back then. And he genuinely, anytime anyone asked him a question, he looked at them, thought about the answer, and answered them. I have met quite a few CEOs in my life now, and very few of them would do that to someone of my rank within the business. And it wasn't a sort of PR answer, here's the flashy answer I'm going to give you. It was actually, let me think about that. Because I remember asking him, you currently have 120 kilowatt hour chargers. How fast do you think they can get in the next few years? And he genuinely did a mathematical equation in his head. You could see him kind of going, well, if we did that. And he's like, I think we could be on 250 in the next 4 or 5 years. That's where we got. So
Yeah, amazing.
like, is he a CEO or is he an engineer? And for me, it was a really awakening moment to understand truly how different he is in the space.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, same as I asked Farzad the other day. So, what are the key takeaways about the general work ethic, the sort of race to progress, if you like? How was it just from starting at Tesla to all of your years there? What was that process like?
The best analogy I could give you is one that was given to me in my final interview, which was interview number 6 to get in the business. And it was an American guy, absolutely awesome guy. I got to know much more when I joined the business. But he said to me, I'm not going to do the accent, but he said to me, Alex, Tesla's not a job, it's a lifestyle. Are you ready for that? Are you willing to do that? And I remember in my head thinking, oh, that's such a corny American thing to say. What's he talking about? Within 2-3 weeks, I was like, okay, I get it. You'd be talking to people from California that were up for some reason at our time. You'd be jumping and having to compete with your colleagues to say, I'll go to that event tomorrow in Scotland. You'd have to be, competing with your colleagues to say, no, I'll go help that customer out in, wherever the sticks it is, and get home at 10 o'clock at night because I was in Cornwall helping a customer. It was such a dynamic, exciting, but hardworking place. But it really didn't feel like hard work at the time because you're with a bunch of really excited, passionate people who cared about the same mission and were on that same mission. And that feeling of camaraderie was so strong. I mean, I've still got some of my best friends in my life now from those early Tesla years. To put it mildly, there is definitely a burnout at a place like Tesla because you are just literally putting in so many hours in mind space. I'd be at home, technically off, but just thinking about what I was going to do the next day, or how are we going to achieve that target we've been set. And so there is definitely a burnout element to it. But my God, it was fun. It's the hardest times that were the most fun, because it was exactly like you said. It was like, right, we're all in this together. How do we solve it? From leadership perspective, having a CEO that would literally be sleeping on the factory floor, and you're not just hearing that from the press, you're hearing that from colleagues who've just walked past and they've gone, Elon's lying there.
There's a really good pivot point to the Model 3 production line, because I noticed you've sent a photo of the event, so perhaps you're there and we could talk about that in a second. But just imagining the stress of being an engineer on the floor of the Model 3 production line, and you've just got to get all the machines up and running and working and stuff. I mean, that's just another level, isn't it? That's like being on the floor of SpaceX rocket factory trying to get these engines to work or whatever. It's just, I can't imagine the pressure and the time that just must fly by, the 12 hours that just disappear when you're working on something so exciting and of such importance. Did you ever witness anything along that line in factories or things like that?
I did get to go out to the Gigafactory in Nevada, Giga 1, and also Fremont. But that was very much from the perspective of come and learn a bit more about the business, come and meet some of your colleagues that you've spoken to and never met, rather than really being on the factory floor seeing that. But what you just described definitely reminds me of some of the crazy end of quarter moments we would have, where you would literally have Elon emailing every couple of hours with a countdown and saying, we need to hit this number, because if we don't, we're going to let down our investors, but also we're going to let down our own targets. And it was a real sense of pressure. But again, it was that we're in this together. How do we achieve it? And I remember running around. It was at the time, it was our Heathrow or West Drayton service centre just outside of London near the airport, and we had the Model X had just been basically the first right-hand drive models being delivered. And we normally, just to give you a sense of perspective, would deliver maybe 5 to 10 cars a day from a site like that, 5 to 10 handovers, because back then we did 1-to-1 handovers. That day, I think we ended on 99. So it was a factor of 10 basically growth in a day. And it all came from that top down, we need to do this, we have to do this, a real sense of we don't have any alternative other than to make this happen. We were calling customers, offering to come and pick them up. We were, finding hotels. I remember one of my customers was on holiday. We managed to convince him to come fly back just to pick up his car. We would then let him park it. We would pay for the parking and he could fly back on his holiday.
Holy moly.
that kind of thing. It was just incredible. Yeah. The most dynamic experience. Now I've come out of that business, I just know for pretty much a fact that a lot of other businesses would have simply gone, it's not possible. we're not going to make that happen. So let's find a different plan. Whereas we
Yeah.
just went, look, let's see what we can do. We talked to customers. Obviously, some of them said no, but until you ask, you don't know.
I guess you've read like Walter Isaacson's book of Elon. So you must have flicked through that and just been listening to the stories going, oh yeah, I can imagine that. Just all the chaos.
A bit more extreme than us being so much closer to the eye of the storm, right? But there were some real stories that really resonated. I remember when I was managing Heathrow, which is one of our showrooms at the time, and obviously its proximity to the airport, I ended up becoming the de facto keeper of Elon's personal car for the UK. And it was I'll give you another funny anecdote actually. So he kept coming in and very late notice, because it's Elon. You'd get a call from one of his security saying, oh, Elon's coming in 4 hours. He needs a car or 2 or 3 to go and do his meetings and things. And so we would just lose our test drive fleet, basically. We'd have to give them to him, right, to go and do his meetings with prime ministers or whatever it was. And so I kind of cheekily, after I think the 3rd visit, I sort of semi-cheekily said to his head of security, I think Elon should just buy a car. And he went, I'll ask him. And literally a few hours later, I get a call out of the blue. There's a guy called Jared Birchall. It was, as he described, Elon's money guy. He says, Elon loves your idea. He wants to buy one, but to help you guys and to make sure this is done completely above board and everything, he's just going to buy the car himself personally. But he also wants to know what have you got on the ground. So he's helping you sell a stock car, an inventory car. And so I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Am I actually selling Elon Musk a car? And long story short, exactly, it was absolutely like, your head's not quite there kind of moment. And I went to the fleet manager for the UK, and him and I just basically went through all the cars and we thought, what makes sense? What does he like? We knew he liked obviously performance. We knew he liked black cars. So we found one and it was a lot of fun. We actually also found one which had a plate, which I won't give the exact plate number because who knows, but it looked a bit like it said life on Mars. And so we just thought that's perfect. Sent it over to Elon through Jared. And a couple of hours later, he's chosen the car, deposit placed, order done. A couple of hours later, full payment done. And again, this is the CEO of the business. He bought the car. He didn't just go, just give me a car. It's my company. Give me the car. It was, I'm going to buy the car. And obviously money's irrelevant. But for me, I think that psychology of him thinking, even I don't get a special deal. It really, as someone who worked for that business, it was really a really important part to realize this is serious. We're not just in this and saying we're doing it for the bigger picture stuff. We're really serious about it.
Being very careful not to tread into politics here, but making Trump buy the car from him as well. It's like, Trump was saying, I know he'd give me a discount, and I was thinking, he ain't going to give you a discount. He doesn't give discounts.
We got a lot of celebs who would just be like, so what deal can you give me?
Yeah, none.
No deal.
Yeah. The Model 3 event then, did you say that you were there for that one?
So no, that picture was sent to me by a friend and colleague. Him and a couple of other colleagues, they actually got flown out there by a customer because the customer had managed to get out there and was so excited. So took some of them with him because they sold him cars for years.
Oh, amazing.
And it was awesome. They loved it. I mean, I think from hearing their anecdotes, right? Like some of these guys on the ground there were, working on 4 or 5 days of no stopping to get to that event. But again, the buzz was there. No one was feeling hard done by, right? No one was like, oh, I can't, this is awful. It was all like, oh my God, this has been so much fun.
Just what a moment in history, though. I think it was, I didn't see it live. I wasn't so into Tesla at that point, but I remember watching it back and just going, oh my God, that's the car for me. And everything just hinged on that moment, didn't it? If it hadn't have all worked out with that Model 3, it just could have been the end of Tesla. It would have been the end of everything that's progressed since then. And thank goodness Elon and everyone who worked for the company at the time just pushed through that production hell and made it work. Else we'd have nothing. I don't know what.
I think it's important to stress every quarter, and this is relevant to what's going on currently. Every quarter internally was a real sense of, are we going to be able to make it to the next quarter? Are we going to have the cash to keep going for? I'd say at least the first 4 years of me working there. But again, like that feeling it never made us question why we were there. It was very much, this is part of what we're doing, make or break, but pretty much every quarter.
I remember following those early charts from, I guess it was Zach and Jesse or Gally even at the time. They were just turning around Tesla's revenue, and all of a sudden you were seeing profit, and you were like, yes, come on.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, what have they got? 40 billion in the bank, but they seem to be in such a great position. So how do you feel about where Tesla are today compared to, when you left them? Do you see the same sort of rapid speed towards progress in the mission still?
I think it has naturally changed in that there is now really no questioning as to whether or not the industry is moving to fully electric. I think every couple of weeks we're seeing less and less stuff about hydrogen, or less and less stuff about hybrids actually being the future. So I think it has naturally changed. Tesla is no longer leading, like pulling from the nose. It's kind of, they're leading now just from simple competition, right? They're leading now from the simple perspective of people want to have a better product than them. I think there is no doubt in my mind that the engineers, the designers, the boffins behind the software, which I've now driven so many EVs, and Tesla is still the benchmark from a software perspective. They are all very much the top of their game, 100% leading the industry. And you can see that, right, from the way that other OEMs do their marketing or do their press releases. It's all still aimed at Tesla. So yeah, I think from the outside in, I see a lot of that. I still have a lot of ex-colleagues, friends who are within the business, and talk to them a lot. And this is the thing that's massively under talked about, I feel, in the press. No one is panicking in Tesla. none of the guys who are there are worried about the future of the business. Obviously, they're worried about all this craziness that's going on and all the horrific, basically hate crimes being perpetrated against Tesla. But from a core business perspective, they're performing better than they've ever performed. Their new products are better than they've ever been. I think I'm a Model Y owner. I was a Model 3 owner before that. And this new Model Y, I mean, it's everything I've ever said. Oh, yeah, that's a little bit of a niggle there. Or I wish it was a little bit quieter on the motorway. All been fixed, all been made far better. So, yeah, I can't help but think the world's gone mad. The business is it's like performing better than it's ever performed, and yet for some reason there's just nothing but negativity in the mainstream.
Yeah. When I'm putting videos together and I watch them back of me just ranting and just screaming and like, what the hell is happening to the world? I can't quite believe what I'm reporting and what I'm sharing. I'm just like, is this the real world? This seems so crazy. I just didn't expect to be doing this, just to be talking about Tesla in this way. But,
if you need proof that we live in a simulation, it's whatever seems to be in the headlines today. I mean,
that's where everything leads me. Yeah. That's looking more and more likely.
And the scary thing, from a personal perspective, friends and family are, they're not necessarily as far gone as some crazy people throwing Molotov cocktails. But there's what scares me about the current way of our society is there's this idea it's all or nothing, right? It's this idea that if you agree with one thing that someone says, you have to agree with everything they say. I have, again, not going deep into politics, but I have never considered myself a particular fan of Trump. But at the same time, there are certain things that I do think make sense. And it's the same with Elon. I've been a fan of Elon for over a decade now. But there are things he does and says that I don't agree with, or I think that was silly, or he shouldn't have done that, or he shouldn't have said that. But I can take that and isolate it and still think he's an important force for good. It shouldn't even be something that needs to be said, but I can also isolate Tesla from what he says about Doge, and those things are completely unrelated. So I find it absolutely mind-boggling what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, just to be in a democracy, don't we have to coexist with people we disagree with? That's the sort of fundamental, core to life, isn't it? We can't just continually fight about every single little subject, can we? But to me, the thing that's missing, and even this morning at the playground, as walking back with the Tesla owner, and we had a brief chat. I don't think he watches the show. Hope he doesn't. But we were having a brief chat, and he turned it to politics and started talking. I just started explaining what Doge is doing, but he just didn't want to hear. Just literally shut me down and started talking about something else. I'm like, oh, you don't even want to hear like anyone else's different opinion. So you're never going to change your mind. So just going back to the family and friends thing. I mean, I can't speak to most of my family or friends about Tesla. I just can't do it because if they ask a question, they don't want to hear the answer. And it's certainly to do with Trump. I mean, I can't believe the level of disdain I used to have for the man when I was just being told what to think by the press. It was quite a challenge to push myself out of my comfort zone and go, hang on a minute, is this man as bad as I'm being told? And if it wasn't for the journey of following Tesla and following the lies and corruption slung at Elon Musk and slung at Tesla over the years, the constant attacks from Tesla Q and the Democratic Party, putting it bluntly, towards Elon, SpaceX, Tesla, everything he's ever done, and then noticing the mainstream media attacks as well, doing just the same. Some of it's coming from the big oil companies, some of it's just coming from media because he's got X. If it wasn't for watching all that, I wouldn't have thought twice about, is Trump the ideal person for the job? But it just kind of woke me up to reality. And I just don't think many people want to face the awkward truth that they might have been lied to for an awful long time about so many things.
It's painful, right? I understand it. I think it sounds like you and I have been through a very similar journey, and it is uncomfortable because you're effectively realizing that, you have been lied to, but also you've kind of just taken it and you haven't really questioned it. And when you do question it, you're having to be honest with yourself and say, right, I let this happen. For me, and this is a bit of a, not quite a conspiracy theory, but it's an idea I've had recently that I wanted to share with you because I think it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on it. But knowing Tesla and knowing Elon as I do, it seems like his shift from the left to the right, specifically relating to the agenda of sustainable energy, I think actually there might be more to it than meets the eye. And I think there's definitely some element to, he was just clearly snubbed and ignored by the Biden administration. That Mary, you led and it matters moment was unbelievable. It was like,
this seems to be the moment that everyone has, is like, oh, that's such a wake-up call.
It was like, this isn't even, you're not even faking the corruption anymore. It's just blatant corruption that you're now televising.
Just a brief reminder to anyone who hasn't seen that clip. Tesla at the time had sold over 1 million electric vehicles, and General Motors had sold 130,000. And there stood Joe Biden, someone who's been just paid for and put in place by the unions for his entire career. And he was claiming, we're just totally snubbing Tesla and claiming that General Motors led and it mattered, just giving Mary Barra, the CEO, all of the glory, just spat in the faces of 125,000 Tesla employees that have worked their faces off for a company that should be held up as an American icon. Yet it was just slung under the bus like it didn't matter. That's my biggest surprise, actually. My biggest frustration is understanding, people rejoice at the Koch brothers story, or McDonald's or anything else in America. Yet you look at Tesla, you think, and SpaceX, you just think these should be absolute pinnacles of celebration for any sensible American, any sensible government should be parading these out. I mean, if you're in North Korea, these guys and the rockets would be, be pulled out through every town, wouldn't they? Just paraded by. Right. It's quite crazy, the lack of enthusiasm.
It shows what disruption really is, right? If you're actually disrupting, you won't get that kind of attention from those in power because you're disrupting the power. And, we saw this for a decade now. There is a huge invested interest in it failing. But the reason I brought it up is because if you think about where we are, and it is quite America specific, but that makes sense given where Elon is and where Tesla is based. But the right was not engaging with electric vehicles. Talking to colleagues at the time, it was beyond what the polls were saying. It was pretty much the only people who were buying them were Democrats or self-identifying as Democrats or neutrals, right? The diehard, proper red state American was not even giving them, as they weren't even test driving them, right? They weren't even experiencing it to allow them to maybe think, oh, actually, this does challenge my thoughts. As soon as Elon has done what he has done, we're now seeing a complete reversal from a lot of people now even saying, I'm just going to go and buy a Tesla because I want to support Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I actually think that Elon looked at the situation in 2021, 2022 kind of time, saw the way that things were going, which is the left has already embraced sustainable technologies in a lot of ways, right? They're going to continue buying electric vehicles if it's Tesla or someone else.
The ones with common sense.
The ones who can use their brains. How do we engage those on the left? And he's a physics first principles thinker, right? And I think he looked at the situation and thought, the only way I'm going to get that group to believe anything I say is by going fully over to their way of thinking on other topics. And so he decided to go down that route. And if we're being truly like objective about this whole thing, I'm obviously a Tesla fan. I'm fully disclosure. I'm still a Tesla shareholder. I obviously would love to see Tesla be successful, but really the most important thing is the mission and sustainable energy and sustainable technology. I think what Elon has done in these last few years is probably more meaningful than just what he's done with Tesla, because he's now engaged a whole basically 50% of the US population that wasn't even going to give them a turn, wasn't even going to give them a chance. And now a significant proportion are starting to actually engage with the product and going, what? This is way better than I thought.
Oh
my God, I'm actually going to get one.
Well, a couple of things spring to mind there. I mean, obviously, he does like to play 4D chess, and he's thinking way ahead of a lot of people, isn't he, in terms of these massive shifts and moves. But that was a great way to engage the people on the right and the Republicans, wasn't it? Like, whether it's good or bad news in the press at the moment, no matter what's happening, more people are finding out that Tesla is an American, the most American made car company. There's plenty of people that are sticking up for Tesla now. Plenty of people going out buying Teslas deliberately to support Trump, deliberately to support Elon as well. Maybe this is some sort of brilliant bridge to bring everyone together again and realize that we don't need to live in such tribal times anymore. We just need to improve life for everybody in various ways, and we don't need to politicize cars or businesses. But what a pleasure to get to be there, I suppose. But the question remains: how do you stop absolute lunatics from actually believing that Elon is as bad as Hitler? I mean, I can't believe that's even a discussion or a topic point.
Yeah,
because to me, it hurts my brain to consider that these people with such lack of critical thinking really don't know the difference. And I've said before, it just spits on the graves of those that have died in a genocide. To be throwing around the word Nazi as if it's just a flipping, hashtag and it's to be thrown away, just makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I guess we're seeing some repercussions to the people that have actually shot up Tesla stores in America, thrown Molotov cocktails, burnt cars, and to see the clip that I played earlier in the video, where people are cheering in the audience. They're cheering that these cars are on fire and that these people's vehicles, some of them, by the way, were, personal owned. They weren't just Tesla's vehicles. I don't know how to get what's going to happen, how to get these lunatics under control, because it's exactly what they are. They are domestic terrorists at this point. They are eco-terrorists, as I've been calling those for a long while. Anyone who sets fire to pylons outside Giga Berlin and takes down the power lines and for local homes and businesses should quite rightly be an eco-terrorist. It's common sense, is it not?
100%. And I think, unfortunately, the nature of those types of people is they're fickle, right? And what I suspect there'll be a twofold way of solving it. One is what they seem to be doing, which is really tough, harsh convictions for people caught doing these things, because it is I mean, it's insanely dangerous, never mind anything else. That's one thing. So I think more people will start to think, wait, I shouldn't do that. Two, though, is they'll find the next thing that they want to hate on and they'll move over to that and Molotov cocktail that. And I think the massive irony in this entire situation is you've got someone screaming about how someone is a hateful person spreading hate. They think Elon Musk spreading hate, right? And show that they're spreading hatred of someone who's got nothing to do with Elon other than buying a product that he's 13% shareholder in. And it's completely insane. It doesn't even, it shouldn't even cost us time to talk about it, other than the fact that it's crazy. But I do think, unfortunately, for the way that these types of people work, we've got to bear through it, and it will come to an end as they find the next thing to hate on and to be aggressive about.
Let's discuss future products then. So, what are you most looking forward to seeing next year? Cybercab, Optimus robots, seeing the direction of AI and integration of Grok into the cars. There's so much to look forward to. What are your thoughts on the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think short term, I keep just trying to say grok in the car and see if it happens. I'm really hopeful that is not far away from what we've seen.
My daughter, sorry to interrupt, but my daughter keeps saying, "Try it again, Daddy," because since we've had our car, I just pressed it once and went, "Deploy wings." I'm like, "Nah, it's not done it." She's like, "Come on, Daddy, try it again."
That would be a stretch over the air, but yeah,
it would be a stretch. Yeah.
But yeah, no,
yeah,
it's true. That would be my short term, most excited short term thing coming. The next thing is probably Optimus, because I mean Cybercab is 100% going to be a massive game changer for the planet and for safety and so many use cases. But at the same time, I love driving, so I don't see myself replacing my car with using someone else's Cybercab. But 100% there are use cases, like going to the pub, not having to worry about drink driving, and sending your loved ones somewhere knowing they're going to get there in a safe way. So that is huge. But for me, I mean, I 100% want an Optimus. I mean, me and my wife continuously bicker about who has to cook the pasta for the children, right? Like neither of us want to do that. If I can have a robot do that every day, 5 days, 7 days a week, no problem. That is so exciting for me. And then all these other applications, right? Like the ability to have so many jobs that really humans don't want to do, to get done, and to have what should come in line with that, which is this idea of abundance, right? I think Elon talked about that yesterday on his All Hands. I think that is so exciting for anyone. And I appreciate there will be people who just don't believe in it, but as someone who's seen, and you've seen third hand, like what someone like Elon Musk can actually turn from an idea into reality, I think it's really highly likely in our lives we will see an age of abundance. We're want for nothing, and it's global, and we're able to completely resolve some of the world's biggest challenges through technology. And it's things like AI combined with robotics that really speed that whole process up. So yeah.
Wild time though, isn't it? To think that we just happen to have been born in this particular, lifeline, lifetime, and we're going to get to witness the emergence of possibly billions of humanoid robots at the same time, where AI has developed to such a point where it's going to be overtaking, all the collective knowledge of human minds, sometime next year, and then just continue into the future. And just imagine the sort of questions we can ask and the benefits it will bring for humanity if we've got situations where robots are actually capable of building factories and building infrastructure and things like that, let alone being, squeezed into a starship and sent to Mars and making a start on that. But, of course, I sound absolutely insane to anyone who's not in the world of Tesla stuff or haven't thought about these things. It's a fun experiment just to sit down. Me and my wife sat down a while ago with a bottle of wine, and we just spoke for hours about how exactly would an Optimus robot help around the house. What exactly would it do? And it's quite a challenge actually to think, how useful it would be. It's easy to go, mow the grass. Well, that's once every week, but then what? Clear out some cupboards. Oh, okay. So it's a good fun experiment if anyone fancies doing that.
One. Yeah. I mean, I do think on your point though, I think what really resonates with me is there's a litmus test in humanity, I think, and it's, are you hopeful about the future? And I think, I mean, I don't know, I've never spoken to any of them, but I think that the type of person that's throwing Molotov cocktails, screaming things like Elon is a Nazi or Tesla is an awful company, if you ask them, they would say, no, they're not at all hopeful about the future. And I think there's a quite strong psychological correlation between hope for the future and turning something positive in the future. If you don't think the future is going to be good, you're not going to make it good. And I think that is seriously important, that anyone who, whether you like Elon, it doesn't matter, or whether you like Tesla, it doesn't matter. The future needs to be something that we're moving forwards in a positive way. And if you're not excited about it, then I can guarantee you are not going to help make it better. So like you said about that, with robots, with space travel, with AI, So all those things, you could look at those from a negative point of view, right? You can. I've heard perfectly logical arguments about how those things are bad, but I can guarantee you they will be bad if you think they're going to be bad. And we need that positivity.
Yeah, I've definitely been down that road many times. Just thinking that this might not all go right. I mean, seriously, it might not. Obviously, I guess we've just got to aim for positive progress, haven't we? It's just my problem is putting the trust in not just people, but governments and everyone else to supposedly take control of AI and robots. I mean, it's difficult to imagine a very peaceful scenario, but it could happen. But also just going to mention, you're talking about hope for the future. It seems to me that the problem has been for the past couple of decades where children are taught that they have been born into the worst of times somehow, despite historically, everything's been better. Poverty's lower than it's ever been. People have gotten more abundance of everything. People think that they're poor just because they've got 2 cars and loads of mobiles and laptops and computers. They still think they're as poor as people living 1,000 years ago. There's a very weird disconnect there, isn't there? And I think the problem I've had with the environmental movement, forced down the throats of a lot of people, me included, to be honest. I did consider myself a really strong environmentalist at one point, but I've had to sort of back away from that when I realized my children were coming home from school telling me that the world's going to end and it's a horrific place and maybe they shouldn't have children. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, where does this lead? Does this lead to where it has done in my mind before, where if these crazed, really far left lunatic environmentalists had control, let's say, of AI and robots, would they be the ones to sort of go, well, let's save the earth by just killing all humans? Does it lead that far with such crazed views? I mean, when do you start putting humanity first instead of thinking about the planet? I mean, the planet will be just fine with or without us, and then it'll die just like all the other billions of planets have done in the past, and hopefully humanity will be amongst the stars by then and elsewhere, goodness knows where. But we can't be teaching children that they're born into the worst time in history, because that is ridiculous. So I think that also leads to the collapse in birth rates and people thinking it's not worth having children. Is that the most wonderful thing, as personally as a dad, it's the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to us as a family is having kids. I was terrified beforehand, but I'm so pleased that I did. I wish we'd have had more when we were a bit younger, because we're both a little bit older now. We're not going to have any more. But anyway, that was a hell of a rant, wasn't it? Sorry.
Well, no, I think it resonates, right? And the term I heard recently that really resonates is overcorrecting or overcorrection. And I've heard it used in quite a few different contexts, but I think it works because, for me, one of the ones that sticks out is this woke idea, right? This idea that you've awakened to your privilege, or you've awakened to, the problems that you have been inadvertently causing. Now, at its core value, it's a really good idea, right? Being more aware of your impact, being more aware of what you might have been doing by accident that's been negative to someone else or something else. Great. Let's all be a bit more aware. It's obviously overcorrected. There's now this idea that I'm supposed to feel guilty about what my great grandfather did before I was ever born. That doesn't make any sense.
You should get reparations for it.
Exactly, and I now owe money, right? So it's an overcorrection, and I think it's the same with environmentalism. I would definitely consider myself an eco-conscious human who tries to do as little harm as he can. I purposely will not fly for the weekend just because I'll think there's other things I can do with my time that I'll enjoy that don't require me to fly. But at the same time, I fully appreciate if someone lives in another country, they want to go and see their family, they need to fly, right? Like, I'm not going to suddenly go and splash oil all over a painting about it. And
very good.
Yeah, exactly. I just think there's an overcorrection. And I think the unfortunate fact about that, which is depressing and I find difficult, is actually we all agree on really the same basic things, really. We just seem to have a misalignment of how far we need to go to get them, what the damage is to get those things. Because ironically, like this Tesla example is perfect. These people who are destroying Teslas are probably self-identified as eco-conscious, don't want to harm the planet. they're burning fucking electric cars.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
make any sense, right? So it's an obvious overcorrection. The unfortunate fact is we all probably do agree on the same things, which is we need to try to make sure that the stuff we're doing is more sustainable. We need to make sure that the stuff we're doing is less harmful to other people. All these very core values we probably all actually share, even with these crazy people with Molotov cocktails. Say, it's your point about tribalism. It's this idea that you can't be gray, right? You can't think, I think that makes sense, but that doesn't, but that makes sense, but that doesn't. It's you have to agree with this team and I'll agree with this team. It doesn't work.
Less dogmatism is, I think, is the clue there, isn't it? But it's very hard, though, isn't it, for people to change their minds? I come back to that quite a lot. It's to question yourself and question your beliefs. It's not in everyone's wheelhouse, is it? Because some people are just so stubborn they'll just die alongside their bad ideas. And then it's up to the next generation to see if they can be flexible enough to adapt and change as they get older.
Whatever your thing is as an individual, whatever the thing that you can actually do something about, you've got to go into it with hope that it's going to get better. And if you don't have that, try to find that, because without that, everything else just won't work. I think we've all in our careers seen we've only really been successful when we've actually cared or we've actually been really invested in what we're doing. And I think that can then be shown across the whole of our species and improving things. It won't happen if you don't believe things will get better.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, it's the first time in my life at age 44 that I've discovered that becoming a fan of hard work actually works. Yeah, I thought the goal was to try and work as least as I could and just have a nice life. That's not it at all. It's to try and add value somehow by finding the thing you love and then running towards that, because then you're not working at all. I mean, I don't consider myself working when I'm sat in this office for 12 hours in a day. I'm doing the thing I want to do. But it's a very fortunate place to be able to ask yourself, what is it you want to do with your life? So yeah. So I have to ask then, what happened after your career at Tesla? So why did you leave?
I mean, I'd had 2 children. I had changed, to put it really simply. I was no longer that excited guy putting his hand up to say, I'll drive to Scotland tonight. Absolutely loved what I was doing. Still very connected to the mission. I still consider myself part of Tesla in terms of being connected to the mission. I was offered an opportunity at a company called Just Park, and I kind of thought to myself, I've been at Tesla pretty much my entire career. It's an opportunity to learn something new. I took that opportunity, and then I moved from there to GridServe, which I've most recently left. I was the head of electric vehicle experience at GridServe.
What excited you about joining GridServe then?
So for me, GridServe was a really good example of a business that was trying to do what everyone else is doing in terms of ultra rapid charging hubs, lots of chargers in one place, but had a real unique element to it with their forecourts, Braintree, Norwich, Gatwick, and now Stevenage.
Of course, yeah. I've just remembered I've been to one. I made a video about that one.
Yeah, they're pretty cool places. Yeah. And so, it really kind of blew me away quite how forward thinking they were in terms of, we're not just going to convert something existing and just put some chargers on the ground. It's right, how do we think from the ground up for electric vehicle drivers? But also, and this was the key part that I was involved in, it was around how do we use these to then also engage non-electric vehicle drivers to help them reduce their fear of the change. They can come in, they can ask questions. We'll have gurus there who can talk to them and answer their questions, and have test drive cars and display cars. And we can have OEMs come and do talks and really cool ideas. Unfortunately, economics are economics, and the current state of everything, it just meant that those kind of additional elements are getting stripped away. And so the business is concentrating on the core building out of their hubs.
I think from my time visiting the place, and I spoke to a young lady who worked there for a little time, and made a whole video about it. I'll link it in up there somewhere, up there right now. But don't go. Watch this first. I'll link it at the end as well. I don't know why YouTube made me do that, but I thought it was a fantastic building, and I love the fact that you could test drive. I think there was 10 different cars available from the one in Braintree? I think it was there. But the whole sort of concept of that seems so forward thinking. It's almost there's Yeah, what is there? Only like 4% electric cars are on the road or something like that. It's a very minimal amount when you consider it like that, despite 1 in 4 new cars
New
that
cars.
are sold today are electric. So I think they are very much ahead of their time. I just hope it catches up quick enough to make them successful. But
Yeah, it was.
obviously, a lot of people's gripes would be just the cost. That's always the main problem of charging an electric car at a grid serve or anywhere, or, all the public chargers. They're just so expensive. Have you got any solutions for what needs to happen there? Because I have, if you don't.
I mean, it's a like anything macro. It's quite a convoluted challenge. I think the UK is relatively unique in our bizarre pricing of electricity. That combined with the VAT problem with public charging, it is inherently just 20% more expensive than it really should be, or 15%. I think the other challenge here is the supply chain. So from my Tesla experience, I'm very aware of their vertical integration giving them a massive advantage, right? They just have far lower costs to install a bank of 16 superchargers compared to a GridServe, an Ionity, a BP, any of them, because they're building the chargers themselves. They're not paying someone else's profit margin to build the chargers. They're then making the software themselves. They're not paying for a third party to integrate the software. They're not then having that very convoluted and long-winded process of saying, okay, software company, you need to do this. Hardware company, can you do that? And then the three of them trying to streamline between them. So I think it's like anything. It's going to be tech led. There's some very clever people are working on some very clever software that's going to enable these problems to just become much smaller and therefore less expensive. And then also, as like you say, with the growth of the car park, the investment in building them will improve, and the costs of building these ultra rapid chargers will come down. The problem is at the moment it's connected to the political spectrum, which makes it inherently challenging to solve.
Quentin Wilson's campaign, from Fair Charge, just to get the price of electricity down from 20% to 5%, which is what homeowners pay for their electricity. That would help people who want to switch to electric cars, but have noticed that if they are just using, forecourts like that, it's going to be quite expensive to charge the car. This is a very unfair system, I suppose. But I don't know how GridServe or anyone else could make it more profitable. Obviously, I don't suppose their profit margins are absolutely huge, are they? Something I learned of like supermarkets. I mean, they only have sort of 2% profit margins. It's a tiny amount, really. It's not as if they're trying to rip you off with all their products. It's like you've got to maintain a business here. So is GridServe, so have all these other charging companies, and Tesla can charge less because of their all their vertical integration, like you say. So I'm not too sure on the answer to that, but most certainly looking forward into 10 years, GridServe are going to be well placed for delivering a great service to EV drivers. And if there's anyone out there that is watching this and hasn't got an electric car, then go to GridServe and take a test drive and see what you think, because it really did feel like I was at the future. In fact, they've even got a little exercise bike, haven't they? That's
yes, you can theoretically charge the car with your legs.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay, just a brief history of your Tesla cars then. So what do you drive today?
So I have a 2022 Model Y long range all-wheel drive. Didn't used to have to say it. When I got it, it was the only one, right? That was all you could get. Then the performance came out. Then the rear-wheel drive came out, and now the long-range rear-wheel drive has come out. Then before that, I had a 2019 Model 3 Performance. Cool little anecdote. I was technically the first reservation holder in the whole country.
Nice.
We were given, it was one of the only times as an employee we've ever been given anything, was we were given 48 hours notice before the public were told they could place reservations. And I remember I was literally on my way home from work, got an email saying reservations go live for employees in 10 minutes, got my laptop out on the train, hotspot my phone, ready to go, did it. And
Cool.
because I had a CRM system, I immediately went on the CRM system. It went reservation 00001. I was like,
whoa, that's amazing.
it was
Cool.
so cool.
Oh,
I didn't get the first car.
Have you sent me a photo of that as well? Did you send that?
Yeah, I definitely took a photo. I'll dig around. Yeah.
I saw an order. It wasn't a hedgehog. There was no high-fiving hedgehog at that time, was there?
Well, no, it was exactly. It was just your reservation.
Yeah. What was your first Tesla then?
Was that one, the Model 3?
Oh, right, yeah, the 3.
So before then, we only had Model S and X. I couldn't afford them. It was
okay,
way out of my price range. But also, I mean, I was managing a showroom. I was I was a corporate sales manager. I had a car pretty much all the time. I mean, I remember another anecdote. The first Model X we ever had in the country, left-hand drive, there was one in the whole country. It got delivered to my showroom. So literally, like, it was so cool being able to drive that around. Like, we drove that into Soho. We were like opening the doors on like Leicester Square, and just like all these people videoing it, taking pictures. It was such a
it's such a phenomenal car. Even now, when I see one, I'm just blown away with it. It's just the Fabergé egg, isn't it? It's just an absolute work of engineering genius. I really thought one day I'd be having one, but alas, I won't be, because they stopped doing the right-hand drive.
Yeah,
that was a right bummer when that happened. Have you had any experience with the new Model Y or Cybertruck or anything like that?
No, I've got as close to the Cybertruck as probably most people in the UK, which is seeing it when it did its tour. The new Model Y, I haven't seen in the flesh yet. I think, again, it's important to stress Tesla, the way they operate, the employees don't even necessarily know when these things are coming, right? And they'll just be like, "Oh, it's here." So
I hear that a lot.
It's funny. I remember you'd have customers coming in and be like, "Come on, tell me, what do you know?" And you're like, "I'm gonna find out through electric, like you will." Like, there was no leaking able to happen because we were never told. So,
that was fun. They said that when I got to the where was it? The showroom in London to see the Cybercab. I'm like, "Oh, how long have you known this was coming?" They're like, "Yesterday." It was so didn't know much about it at all. You should get yourself across to America or something and get a Cybertruck, because I had a whale of a time with that one. That was fun. And I saw the new Model Y. I went down and did a little video about that not so long ago, which Tesla invited me to, which I was blown away by.
Oh yeah, I saw it,
yeah, and I was meant to be taking one out on next Monday, as in a few days' time, but that's just been rearranged for a few weeks afterwards. So I will get the opportunity.
Right-hand drive or left?
Oh yeah. So right-hand drive. Well, I think so. I didn't ask that, actually. I don't know.
Don't assume we're Tesla.
Yeah, I guess I won't do, but I'm looking forward to driving it anyway. If here's a question for you: if you didn't, if you couldn't drive a Tesla, what would you choose?
Oh, I do think about that quite a lot, actually. So I tested the new Mini Cooper electric. Had it for a couple of days a few months ago. I was really impressed. I think they've really nailed, and they've nailed it for so long, Mini, right? The aesthetic and how different it is, a round screen, and the way that the sort of materials have got like Union Jacks embroidered into them, and they're really cool. And it was great fun to drive, rear wheel drive, low to the ground, really nippy. Other than the fact that it's awful for families. If it was just me, that's definitely up there on the list.
Our friends have just bought the it's not the Countryman, it's something else. I can't remember what they call it. The Paceman, fully electric. That's a family sort of, it's not a massive boot, but they absolutely love it. And me and my wife, we've come from two Minis. We had a Countryman before our Tesla, and then a Clubman, so the estate little Mini. To start with, a 1.6 twin turbo Cooper S. We just adored the details and the different color options and the steering wheel. I mean, the one that you drove, I took that one out as well and did a video on that. And did you notice on the steering wheel, they got like those little bits of fabric just from the central part and they've got little tags on the seat. There's just so many details in there, and loads of people just love that stuff. It's just uniqueness, isn't it? You get a car and then I remember like hunting down the perfect Mini for us.
I mean, I'm also a big fan of the BMW i4. Definitely a lovely car to drive, and actually, from my personal experience, one of the most efficient, close to Tesla, not quite Tesla efficient, but that really impressed me. I had a Volvo EX30 for about 6 months as my company car. There are parts of it that I really liked, but it was so inefficient. I was driving conservatively, and I was getting 3.1, 3.2 miles per kilowatt. My Model Y will get 4, and it's a massive EV. So that really disappointed me that a brand new ground up EV from Volvo didn't quite have that level of efficiency.
Have you tried a Polestar?
Yeah, I had a Polestar 2 for about 6 months as well.
How was the efficiency on that compared to the Volvo?
Oh, it was pretty much exactly the same. This was one of the early ones, not the facelift.
Oh, okay.
the facelift ones, I test drove those, and they were definitely more efficient. But I mean, to be fair, the Volvo was the performance variant. It was the EX30 performance, and it was insanely quick, like nearly as quick as the Model 3 performance I used to have. You know, there's a trade-off, right? You're going to get less efficiency when you're that fast. Yeah, what really impressed me actually on non-Tesla vehicles, what really impressed me was they've really gone down, like, hard down the software route. They've worked really well with Google to create a really good ecosystem that felt natural. The touchscreen was really responsive, unlike quite a few cars you get into nowadays.
I certainly felt that with the Mini. I thought the screen was really good, actually. Really enjoyed that. It's really clear and crisp. It just acted quite, very responsive and stuff. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Whereas I've got Audis, they're just like laggy, and they're just not intuitive.
Seems amazing that they've even put it out to production like that, doesn't it? Just think, I know exactly what you mean. Well, I'm not sure if you're coming to the Tesla Owner Club UK's largest event this year on the 28th of June, are you? That's supercharged.
Yeah.
So I'll be there. My family will be there. We're gonna camp in the car, or my wife's booked a hotel, I think. I'll be camping in the car. They'll be in the hotel. But if anyone's free on the 28th of June, then do come along to that, because it's going to be pretty epic event. There's loads of things going on. So thanks very much for your time, Alex. I really appreciate you reaching out to me just and having a chat. So there you go. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and don't forget to click on one of these videos next. I'm Will. This is the Tesla Jigsaw. Thank you, patrons. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.